Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Win TV. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, and we want to thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Washington Informer, and I want to, of course, always like to put out the real copy. I mean, there's the digital copy, and I always appreciate Chevy putting that on the screen, but there's one with actual pages. Believe it or not, we're still printing. So we'd love for you to pick up a copy of the Washington Informer if you haven't. You can always read it online as well, since you are already online at www.washingtoninformer.com. And once a month, as you all know or may not know, we also publish The Bridge, an insert written by millennials for millennials. And so they did their voting issue this month. And I have to say, take a point of personal preference here. My son wrote the editorial this week, the publisher's commentary. And, sometimes we talk to young folks about voting, the importance of voting. But when they talk to you about voting, then you realize they really got it. And so I thought it was a great piece that he did this week, as well as featuring some of the folks that are running for office and in the District of Columbia. So if you get a copy of The Bridge, the Informer, make sure that you go on the inside and look and get that copy of The Bridge as well. And you can also read The Bridge online at wibridgedc.com. So check them out online as well. If you're watching on Facebook, we want you to go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we will follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. I always like to make sure folks understand that's one word, Washington Informer TV, no spaces. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Chevy, we're doing pretty good. We haven't quite hit 600 yet. It's been a long road, but we're very optimistic, and we hope through the programming that we could try to continue to bring you, that you will subscribe and ask your friends to subscribe as well. So, what are we talking about in the newsroom here at the Informer and other places? On the local side, excuse me, I don't know if you knew, but with all that's been going on around this country, the District of Columbia Council has voted to eliminate, it's a gradual process, but to eliminate school resource officers from the DC public schools. We're going to talk with Sam Collins about that a little bit later on. And I think we may actually bring some folks onto the show to talk about that. I mean, how do we keep our young people safe? And even with the defund the police movement, which also included getting resource officers out of the schools, I'm just wondering how people are feeling about that right now. Ward 8 council member Mary Che was put on the no entry list for Russia. Wow. Now she said, she wrote responded in an article in the Washington Post that compared to some of the people on the list, she probably is the least threatening of everyone. But they put her on the list because she named the street in front of the Russian embassy after, and I don't remember, but when we get James Wright on, he can tell us who they named that street after. So as a result of that, and it's someone who was recognized, I believe, as a anti-communist person, individual, and had protested some things. I don't want to make the story up. So, but because of what she did in making sure that street name was changed, Russia put her on the no entry list. So I'm sure she's very disappointed about that. With all of the money or the increase in prices, food banks and pantries now are struggling with the increase of cost of food as well. And so they're pulling the most expensive products from their shelves. I don't know how folks feel about that, but I would say, in my humble opinion, I've learned to look down at the bottom of the shelves myself, where the cheapest products are, because, in reality, we are actually sometimes feeling overcharged for name brands and others, and other products are just store brands, and other brands are just as good or quality products as the one we might have historically spent a lot of money on. So I can understand why the food banks are doing what they're doing. Our job as residents and people who care about folks less fortunate than us who need food, but for the grace of God, there go I or you or um, we can understand why food banks are making those choices. Our job is just to make sure that those food bank shelves stay full for people who absolutely need it. And of course, Maryland will join other states to provide prenatal care, regardless of immigration status, under the Healthy Babies Equity Act. That was recently reported on a local radio station. And so, for those who, again, we've got so many issues dealing with our babies, and I'm surprised we'll probably talk about this a little bit more when we get with our reporters today, and just what's happening with this baby formula issue. I still can't figure this one out. So hopefully, and it's real, folks. It's real. If you ask mothers, particularly young mothers on the streets, if you happen to see a mother and you ask them, "Are you having problems getting baby formula?" I haven't run across one that told me no. They all said to me, "This is real." So it's something that's impacting all of our communities, and so whatever Maryland is doing to help support prenatal care, but also when babies are born in D.C., Maryland, Virginia, the states need to step in and try to be more supportive. Monday is Memorial Day, and we appreciate, of course, the many soldiers who died fighting for this country, and we look forward to a conversation we're going to have with a military man, a young man, and talk about why so many are willing to put their lives on the line for their country. But thousands of motorcycle riders are expected in D.C. At the National Mall for the annual Rolling Thunder event that's held here every year. There was a time, I think a couple years ago, when they thought they weren't going to be able to hold it because of the cost. And it does cost quite a bit to hold events here in the nation's capital. But it looks like they're back, and they honor those killed in war and missing in action. So you're going to find a lot of street closures here in DC over the weekend. So make sure you stay abreast of what those street closures are. If you have people that are coming in for Memorial Day events, it's going to be a little difficult to get around in downtown DC. But again, we want to also respect and honor those who have died or given their lives or are missing in action because of wars currently and wars past. And, I always like to mention, too, the African American Civil War Museum used to have an event itself over off of U Street, Florida Avenue, and was it Vermont Avenue. That's where the African American Civil War Memorial is. And a group of bikers, actually Black bikers, they weren't on motorcycles, they were on bicycles. And they did a ride as well, and would get there to the Civil War Memorial. And I'm pretty sure wreath laying will take place there this weekend. I don't know if there's going to be any big events. We haven't heard from the folks over there. We know that they have an event planned for Juneteenth, but it's still a great opportunity to honor people of African American descent who have also, again, given their lives in these wars. So again, if you're listening and you are in the military, we just want to say thank you for your service. Sherry, we're going to have an update from Curtis? No, we're not. Okay, so we're going to move on. As we close out the month of May, we're delighted to celebrate Military Appreciation Month. So joining us today is U.S. Air Force Captain Javaughn Baltrip. We're also going to continue our recognition of Mental Health Month with Maryland State Attorney Aisha Brayboy, who will be here to talk about an upcoming community in the courthouse discussion on mental health and criminal justice, and the Multicultural Festival taking place in June. So she's going to share some details with us and invite us out to that event. We're going to have Donna Cryer, who's the founder and CEO of the Global Liver Institute. And she's going to be here to talk about the launch of a major national liver health awareness campaign and what's happening here, how it will impact folks in the DMV. She's got quite a testimony to share. And I look forward to spending some time with her. And last but not least, we introduced last month, and we're going to continue to do this at the end of every month. Our don't want to call it Reporters Roundtable because reporters are at a lot of roundtables, but we're just kind of going to call it maybe our reporter connection, our reporter hookup, or something. We'll figure it out. But the Washington Informer reported team will be with me at the end of the show. We're just going to go over some of the big news and analysis of that news over the past month. So that's the show. Hope you'll stay with us. Hope you've reached out to some friends and colleagues and said, please join Denise and the folks over there at the Informer on WIN TV, because I want you to help me to welcome Captain Baltrip, who is our first guest this afternoon. How are you, Captain?
Doing well. How about you?
I am doing fantastic, and we've had a lot of conversation before the show, so I just want to say how proud I am of you, but also thank you very much for your service.
Thank you so much.
So tell us, you're captain in the Air Force, but that sounds like it's so general. So tell us who you are.
Yeah, I'm Javaughn, without the rank, on my free time, I enjoy working out. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Grew up, running track, playing football. Just your normal guy. Nobody special.
Well, in your eyes, you might not be special, but in mine, and I think probably our viewers, after we finish this call, they will probably see you as someone special as well. But at what point in your regular daily life as a young person growing up in Houston did you sort of take a peek over at the military to decide to join?
Yeah. Honestly, it's a long story, but my pops, he sat me down back in the 8th grade. He had a real conversation with me. He let me know he couldn't afford college. He mentioned how intelligent I was, how smart I was, how athletic I was, how I might be able to work out an academic scholarship or athletic scholarship. But bottom line, he needed me to start working it now, back in 8th grade. So back then, started doing our research, and we discovered the Air Force Academy. Air Force Academy was a great opportunity. There, had the opportunity to have free education, and then afterwards, you had a guaranteed job. So you really can't beat that anywhere else. So after that, I did everything that I needed to do to get into the Air Force Academy. It took me 3 years to get in.
Okay.
But yeah, once I got in, went through the Air Force Academy prep school in 2012, and then I went to the Air Force Academy, and then commissioned in 2017.
Well, I want to go back, and congratulations, because we're going to go back and forth. But first of all, in 8th grade, your father said, if you want to go to college. So what was that your father's plan for you, or was that your plan for yourself, that you were going to finish high school and go to college, or did you know at that point what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was, I was identified very early as gifted. So it was a no-brainer that I was going to go to college. The only part was identifying, which route was I going to go, and how can we make it work. So yeah.
And go to college to do what?
So once I went to college, I studied behavioral sciences at the Air Force Academy this month.
Okay. And you said you tried to get in 3 times. What was the biggest challenge for you? What made it so difficult, or what was the biggest challenge? But also, why did you keep trying?
Yeah, the Air Force Academy is competitive, to say the least. It's one of our top public schools, public universities in America. Hands down, is one of the most selective. I think the acceptance rate is like 9 or 10%. For me, my great grandfather was a Buffalo soldier. My other great grandfather was he fought in the Korean War. My dad served. My brother was in the Navy. I knew that the Air Force was for me, and they were all pushing me towards the officer route. So I knew I was going to go to college, and I knew, I was going to be an officer. So I just needed to find the remaining pieces just to make it work. So yeah, it took me 3 years to get in, but I got it.
Well, congratulations. And when did you finish?
In 2017.
2017. Okay. And so you have already achieved the rank of captain.
Yes, ma'am.
Talk about that journey.
Yeah. So once I commissioned, I came out to Joint Base Andrews. Um, I was a personnel officer. So I served there for about 2 years. Then I came over here to the Air Force. Oh, sorry, to the Air Force Honor Guard. And here at the Air Force Honor Guard, our primary mission is the Arlington National Cemetery, as well as we have our drill team and a lot of the big community relations events that we do. So it's a pretty high vis job. Throughout my time in the Air Force, it's been so rewarding. I had the opportunity to lead and do things that my counterparts, in the civilian world don't have the opportunity to do. So it's pretty cool. I get to see a lot of cool people, a lot of presidents, all the I've seen most all the living presidents in person and up and close and personal. So it's been a good time.
Yeah, I can, often, and this is what we do at Black newspapers, right? Well, I think it's what Black people do anyway, but you look at events and you, first of all, trying to figure out, is there a Black person in that group, right? And I always do that when it comes to like the honor guards, the folks that stand over the, uh, not only the tomb, but when they're in the what do you call it? I can't remember. I'm getting brain freeze. But at the U.S. Capitol,
Yeah.
That's the caskets. That's what it was, and they stand over the caskets, or at the services at the and wondering who the Black person is and why we should identify those people. We should talk about their story as well,
Absolutely.
because it's a special position to be in. So, and like you said, you've got a chance to meet so many people, but you can't smile at them. You can't nod. So
Right.
what is that all about? Why do you do that?
Yeah, it comes along with the military bearing. You don't want to break formation. You don't, and you want to represent your service in the best light possible. So I know me personally, I have a lot of competition with the Marines. So I like to look sharper than the Marines at all times. So if the Marines aren't moving, I'm not moving either.
So, Captain Baltrip, my father was in the military. My husband was in the military. Chevry was just talking about, our producer, all the family members that were in the military. And there seems to be a different generation now of young men and women. We know that they're joining, but we're not hearing a whole lot about them. And we're thinking that the numbers is the military, is the Air Force recruiting? And what do you find is the biggest barrier to get more of our young people interested and engaged in the military?
Yeah. So what I would say is, when I'm out with my drill team, we are the one of the functions of the Air Force recruiting. So when we go out, I'm going out there and I'm showing that I have absolute trust in my airmen to where I'm gonna walk through spinning rifles with blades, bayonets attached to those rifles, and I'm gonna walk through with complete confidence, and I'm gonna stick it, and they're not gonna cut me up or anything. That's and then after my performance, we have Air Force Recruiting Services already sitting there, ready to recruit anybody who seems interested in what we do, or anything like that. Barriers, generally speaking, it's military service is daunting, especially if you don't have anybody in your family who can kind of explain that over to you. I was lucky. I had, my great grandparents. I had my dad. I had my brother. But not everybody has that. So it can be a little intimidating, and just to make that leap out on faith, and just know that everything is going to be okay.
And I want to really put a little emphasis on women as well,
Yeah.
because a lot of our young women are, consider the opportunities are more available for women now. But what is your observation? Are you seeing more of us or less of us? I mean, what would be the goal if you could tell us what's happening with the recruitment of women into the military, particularly Black women?
Yeah. For Black women in particular, I would say that I mean they are coming. They're coming out. They are showing force, and they're doing very well all throughout the service. Just the overall just the upbringing of being a Black woman, you're going to do well in the military. It's nothing out of the ordinary, and I see it all throughout the service, and they're doing well, and they're being recruited at, I would say, the same rates as everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's good to see. It's encouraging for me to see. So when I'm looking out at my troops, and I see I see people who look like me, and just different reflections of myself or my sister or my mother. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, that's great. We all hear the stories, about discrimination, particularly in the academies, and what a lot of people are going through, in these academies. But the point is that you do come out on the other side.
Exactly.
and that's a good thing. So tell me, I mean, this is Memorial Day. I don't know if that's your cue that you have to go, but this is Memorial Day. We're honoring, troops that have died in wars and some who are missing. What does this day mean to you? What does this occasion mean to you?
Yeah, it's tremendous. I know, just like I mentioned, part of our mission here is Arlington National Cemetery. So we actually lay those members to rest, or we have their final their final funeral services, even though we might not have their body out there at Arlington National Cemetery. So it's a very humbling experience, and I have friends who are serving, who are overseas right now, at the pointy end of the spear. So it's very sobering for me, and it's. I mean, I would hope that's not me one day, but if it was, I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve.
Mm-hmm. And will you be there this weekend?
At the DC Memorial Parade?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll be marching with the Air Force Unit.
Wonderful. Okay, we've got to look out there and wave a flag for you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking this time. I think that as and of course, we're all excited about the Secretary of
Yes.
the Defense. A Black man too. We're really excited about that. And these are some trying times because it's a lot of stuff happening all over the world. But we are focused a lot on Ukraine, and we're losing supporting that effort. But then some of our troops have gone over to really help the Ukrainians as well. So when they come back, but they're not serving officially, right? You can't answer that question.
Yeah, right. I'm being coached right now. I can't. Yeah, I can't.
All right, okay. That's one of those questions that comes out and you realize he probably can't answer that. And so, so no problem. I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you very much for being with us. Don't be a stranger. Okay. Let your folks know over there that we want to know more, and we want to, if it's a great opportunity. There's so many benefits that folks in the military get, and our young folks need them. And so whatever we can do, to lift you up and others, we certainly want to be a part of that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, and tell your person over there, I got you. All right. See you next time. Take care. some of us in the media, we do ask these questions and we know that we really can't get answers, but and sometimes we don't know. We ask it just because we're curious. And so I saw that little note coming by knowing, okay, Denise, you've gone overboard here. Anyway, Maryland State Attorney Aisha Braveboy, you're joining us at the time that we look like we're having the beginning of that storm or tornado over here. I don't know what you see, but it looks, really crazy out there at the moment. So hopefully the internet will stay connected. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And I really hope everyone stays safe. And if you have to be out on the road, please drive safely.
Yeah, definitely. So you've got a program that you're involved with, and I think it's very interesting because we've talked so much about criminal justice and mental health, but this is the first event that I am aware of where someone in your position is actually bringing the two issues together for a community event. Can you tell us about what you've got planned?
Yeah, so monthly we host something called Community in the Courthouse, which is an opportunity for people to learn about the work of our office, as well as cases that we're handling. We also want to hear from the community as well. So we, it's interactive. So we give an opportunity for our community members to ask questions or share information. And sometimes we have very specific topics. And so this month, in honor and recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month, we are going to host a conversation on mental health and the criminal justice system. What we know is that nationally, about 37% of people who are in our prisons have a diagnosed mental health issue, and about 44% in our local jails have a mental health issue. That's nationally. Here in Maryland and specifically in Prince George's County, those numbers are higher. So what we understand is that there are a lot of people who are in the criminal justice system who suffer from a mental health disorder. Some have been diagnosed, some are undiagnosed. And so it presents a real problem when we determine how to treat someone who has committed an offense, but also is suffering from a mental health issue.
I don't want to take this too lightly, but, and you may agree or disagree, but I think all of us have some kind of mental health issue. We all have it, regardless of how we may look, see, feel, race, whatever. And so you mentioned the word identify the issue. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, and what is it that you're seeing in the criminal justice system, if there are labels you can put on it?
Yeah, and it's hard to label people because I think everyone presents a little different, because you may be interacting with someone and you think you're having a normal interaction, and then you spot or notice something that might be a little off. And so you think, hey, maybe this person needs a little assistance or help. Whether that individual has been diagnosed, meaning we know that they have a mental health disorder that they have been diagnosed for, or it's someone who is presenting in a way where either our office or the defense counsel or the courts might determine, what, we need to look into that. They can actually order an individual to go through a mental health evaluation to determine whether or not they need to seek treatment. And the important thing about that is recognizing whether or not that person is suffering from a mental health disorder early, because we do have mental health court in Prince George's County, and that really can help and aid individuals who are going through the criminal justice process, but also need support and assistance for their disorder. And so we do try to identify those individuals, get them into mental health court so that they can get on their meds. If they are, sometimes people get off their meds and then they act out. Some individuals have never been diagnosed, and so we are able to connect them with care providers. So it is really important that we try to determine whether or not someone needs help pretty early in those stages.
And is this the kind of event where people, let's say that there are people, well, we know that there are people who are incarcerated presently with mental health issues. I've got a really close, very, very young friend who's been incarcerated now for about 5 years. And the challenge with him is that because of his mental health issues, he keeps acting out, right? And so consequently, his sentence keeps getting extended. And so, is this the place where family members and friends and others can come and really engage in this conversation as well? Because I don't know if the prison is the place to address those issues.
And I would say that the prison is not the best place to address those issues. And in fact, we need to invest more in long care treatment centers in our community. And unfortunately, that's where we have seen over the past 20, 30 years, the greatest disinvestment has been in mental and behavioral health. And I think now people are recognizing the importance of having these centers in our community because unfortunately, people have issues, right? And just like we have hospitals that deal with people with physical health issues, we need a place and not just a few beds here, a few beds there for people who have long-term emotional and mental health needs. That's just something that we must provide in our society. And so I'm a huge advocate for building these centers so that we can appropriately house and treat people who have mental health disorders. The reality is everyone wants to be safe in the community. And so we can't have people who are in our community who really do present a danger to themselves and to others out in the community without help. That's I don't think anyone would agree with that. Right. But I also don't believe that jails and prisons offer the best treatment kind of options, but that's what we have right now. And so what we have to do is we have to do better. We have to invest in long-term care for those who have, committed offenses, but need that level of support, supervision, and really wraparound services that can best be provided in a different type of setting.
Well, I applaud you for taking this on and for bringing this front and center and for providing the community an opportunity to engage in conversation with you and your office. It's really important. And every time we hear some, major traumatic news story, it's always, were there mental health issues involved? And of course there were. It's almost a given now. And so we're finding a way to address that. So if you could just give us the details about the event one more time, and then
Sure. And not only will my office be there, but we'll have folks there from our local Department of Corrections, as well as some of our care providers. So this is really going to be a great conversation. And if people have individuals who are currently incarcerated and need help for their loved one, we can connect them directly to their the facility where they are being held so that they can get that treatment. So we really want people to come to participate, and also we will do those connections there so they can follow us on all forms of social media to get the information for this upcoming event at PGSAO News. That's at PGSAO News. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. If you go to our pages, you will see a flyer. You can click on that flyer and get connected to register for the event on Tuesday. That's next Tuesday, the 31st of May, from 6 to 7:30. So we really are excited about it, and we look forward to welcoming everyone, including your listeners.
All right. Thank you so very much for being with us. The door is always open, so feel free to come by anytime. Let us know what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good one. So we're going to move this program along. I am really excited to bring on attorney Donna Cryer, who is the founder and CEO of Global Liver Institute. Donna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Denise. I'm really honored to be on this platform, having been a reader of the Washington Informer since I first arrived in DC to go to law school at Georgetown. So really honored to be talking with you today.
Yeah, well, that was just 2 years ago, right?
Love you.
Yeah, so tell us what the Global Liver Institute is and why you established this organization.
Yes, I founded the Global Liver Institute 7 years ago here in Washington, D.C., because there wasn't enough advocacy in liver disease. There's still not quite enough. People don't think about their liver the way they do their heart health, and yet everyone has a liver, so everyone is at risk of some form of liver disease. And in fact, 1 in 3 people already have some form of liver disease, whether that is viral liver disease, as we're seeing in acute hepatitis cases in children that are happening now, or types of fatty liver disease and other things. I had a rare autoimmune disease that developed when I was a child that led to my liver transplant more than 27 years ago.
Wow. And how have you been doing since you've had the transplant? I mean, you look like
I
you're
am
doing
blessed.
great. So yeah.
I am very blessed. Liver transplant, they call it the gift of life, and it really is. And so I was, I recognize that I was fortunate because not everyone has, particularly Black and Brown families, someone doesn't already always reach out to them to donate an organ. They don't realize that folks like me are the ones who get it. And I've had the privilege of working with Dr. Clive Callender at Howard University, who started MOTEP, the Minority Organ Transplant and Tissue Education Program, for several years. And and then to get a transplant and then to survive as many years as I have, is really one of the reasons I created the Global Liver Institute, to make sure that more people had this opportunity to be as sick as I was with only 7 days to live, and yet to be able to live such a long and healthy life afterwards.
That is tremendous. And I will say, I want to let folks know, because when you mention transplant and you talk about how well you're doing, that when we talked to Captain Baltrip earlier, you shared with us that you took your own
The Army fitness test.
Army
Yes.
fitness test, right, right.
Liver disease as can be so severe and so serious that I was only 85 pounds when I was transplanted. I was in intensive care, and so I've had several times to rebuild all of my muscles. And so but people also think that there are limits, and I want to live a limitless life, in the esteemed words of Jennifer Lopez, only God can hold me. And so I thought, okay, what do I set as a new fitness goal? I'm like, I'm going to try to pass the Army fitness test, which has pull-ups and runs and sit-ups and all these different things. And so I did, and I think that's a way that I honor the family that donated this organ out of the tragedy of their loved one. And it's a way that I model what's possible for all of the patients, certainly around the DC area and around the country and now around the world, about what the potential is if they get attention for their liver health.
What you mentioned that 1 in 3 individuals has some form of liver disease, and I can assume that most don't know. How does it present itself if you have in early stages, let's say? What might you observe that you kind of ignore?
You're absolutely right. Most don't know because in the early stages of most types of liver disease, and there are more than 100 different types, the symptoms are easy to ignore. They might just be fatigue. There might be a lot happening inside as the liver is slowly losing its capabilities to regenerate and to overcome the various assaults from environmental or alcohol or medications or the viruses that may be assaulting it. And at some point, at later stages, that's when you see jaundice or yellowing of the eyes or fluid buildup and things like that. But that's why it's so important to have primary care doctors, not just the hepatologist or liver experts, the rare specialists, but have primary care doctors And doctors who treat diabetes and cardiovascular disease or heart disease are also paying attention to people's liver health and are testing for it. Often in an annual physical, you'll get your blood work and you'll have liver function tests on there or liver enzyme tests, and they're ignored. And so make sure your doctor pays attention to those tests. So that's the, that and risk factors like obesity and age and type 2 diabetes. If your doctors pay more attention to those, we catch so many people earlier when so much of liver disease can be prevented. Up to 70% of the different types of liver disease can be prevented if caught early on through, vaccination or healthy behavior.
And that was my next question about prevention. How do you maintain a healthy liver?
Yes. Well, the good news is it's easy, and it is very similar to the things that you can do to improve your heart health and prevent or reduce your diabetes. And so it's things like more water, less soda. It is movement. I don't like to say exercise, and yes, I exercise, but I think it's just getting up and moving, walking, or I have had a set of weights here in my office on the other thing, and so sometimes between meetings I'll just lift even 3-pound weights, and so it could be walking your dog. Some type of movement is really, really important. It's also getting vaccinated, not only your COVID vaccine, but hepatitis B and A vaccines. We now have cures for hepatitis C. So if people are screened, we can cure that disease. So it's really a great story if we can work with folks like you and get it to people, because so much liver disease can be prevented before you need a transplant like me or have liver cancer. And so if we can refocus people on liver health, which is what our campaign is about, liver health is public health, we really can get to people much earlier on, get to children earlier on, and prevent most types of liver disease.
I've learned a lot about a liver today. You're right. I mean, there's certain organs that we need to live, right? And we always think about the heart and the brain. Pretty much those are the biggest ones that I can think of.
Right.
But there are a lot of other little things that go on in our body that help to keep it in sync. So I really appreciate you being here. The campaign itself, just if you can just define what
it's called. Liver Health is Public Health, and you can find information on the Global Liver Institute website and on our Facebook and Twitter. And it's just the beginning of a 3-year campaign, but really it's the culmination of my life and legacy. So I'm excited to bring it to DC as well as everywhere else.
And Donna, are you available if organizations wanted you to come and talk to their groups about liver?
Absolutely. They can contact us at info@globalliver.org.
Okay.
And we will absolutely do the best that we can to send out me or some of the fabulous patients that we've trained to talk about this. And so I'd be happy to hear from anyone.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much for being with us. We've taken up a lot of your time today, but we needed this much needed information. So good luck to you, and keep us informed.
Thank you, Denise.
All righty. So we got about 15 minutes left. I think we've had a pretty packed show, and it's been good. I think great information that we've been able to give. And so now we're going to kind of look back and look forward with our Washington Informer editorial team. I'd like to welcome Jamila Bay. Hi, Jamila. William Ford. Who else is with us? James. Sam. Woo.
For Kevin. Kevin's here.
Okay, and Kevin McNair. Kevin is our editor somewhere out there. We're doing Prince George's County. James, city politics. Sam, education, city politics. Jamila, all things web. So I'm gonna start. Oh, I hear thunder coming from somebody's computer. It just left us, so it must be headed your way. So hot topics. Whoa, Sam, we talked earlier. I want to bring you on first. And, everybody can jump in because you've got some background on some of these issues. And this is kind of couple things I wanted to bring the point. Sam, we talked early on about these school resource officers, right? The city council. Can you tell us the history, a little bit about that vote? And I want to get with William, because now I think there's an issue brewing over in Prince George's County as well. But what's happening with these resource officers in the schools?
I'm more than happy to talk about that history. So in the wake of George Floyd's murder and the uprisings across the United States, there was a lot of discussion locally and statewide about the presence of school resource officers inside the schools. So the DC Council, at the recommendation of a task force that was composed of advocates, lawyers, and the such, they voted unanimously in 2020 to phase out school resource officers. So this process would be a 4-year process where they would take out these school resource officers. Mayor Bowser, in her 2023 budget proposal that she put forth earlier this year, had it been passed as is, it would have negated that vote. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the DC Council, with an amendment that Charles Allen put up, voted 8-5 to nullify that proposal and to move on with the phasing out of police officers. Out of the 5 who voted no, we had Councilmember Trayon White of Ward 8, Councilmember Vince Gray of Ward 7, Councilmember Mary Che of Ward 3, Brooke Pinto of Ward 2, and we had Mendelson, the chair. Councilmember White cited concerns that his constituents had about public safety and about safety in the schools, with a lot of fights raging on, and at times even parents showing up to the school campus and causing a ruckus. As a matter of fact, as the story that I wrote this week showed, at Bard College Preparatory, there was an incident there not too long after the vote passed. So, once again, this issue, we're talking about the issue of police brutality versus that of public safety, and it's a very nuanced position. Time and time, people are going back and forth on the pendulum.
Jamila, James, I know, James, you covered something this week. William, what are you all hearing out there on the streets as it relates to just, I mean, especially in light of the school shooting in Texas this week? What are you all hearing out there on the streets about, school safety?
I'll hop in. The academics that I've talked to or whatnot, the deep concern is that Black students are already over policed outside of schools, inside of schools. The research shows that there is a clear path between negative future outcomes when a student is disciplined by a school resource officer. It allows for that easy tracking to what is being called the school to prison pipeline. The numbers of students who are thus tracked are, when you account for race, it's pretty much the way Black girls get put into the system. And a whole lot of Black boys are put into the system that way as well. Children with mental health issues and disabilities also disproportionately tagged at school, and then they go on to later have encounters with law enforcement they likely would not have had there been no record of this child having issues prior. So it's a fraught concern that I'll close in saying the Second Amendment issue need not be conflated here. School shootings, as we saw in Texas, are often, independent of whether a school has resource officers or not.
Interesting. William?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Jamila kind of touched on what I've been hearing, which the discussion continues on some of the data saying that Black children are more looked upon when there's police in schools. Let me mention something that we reported on last year that's still valid. There was a survey conducted. The Prince George's school system did about 13,000 respondents. They overwhelmingly supported SROs. Now, there was no names in it of who these people are, but it was highly supported. In addition, in Maryland, there is a state law that says some type of coverage, whether it be law enforcement, local police in the municipality, needs to be at least somewhere near the schools. So, and it's a little different dichotomy, as Sam has mentioned, with the district. There are some counties that support it, and they say they are valid to the schools. Whether that remains to be seen. And this little bit of news here got approval for myself and Rob Roberts to talk to a few young people tomorrow morning at Creative Soup. They're going to be having a particular program. I think it started last week. So it's about.
Store must have got him. I'm gonna jump on to another topic here because we got two jurisdictions, right? DC and Prince George's County that are have elections coming up. We've got a primary coming up in DC in June, a primary coming up in Prince George's in I think July. James, you've been covering the election circuit here in the District of Columbia. What do you see going on?
Well, I see a whole lot of excitement and a lot of political buzz going on around the candidates. You have a mayor's race that a lot of people are talking about. They're saying, the prognosticators are saying that Bowser is ahead right now, but it looks like it may not be as much as some people think. And Robert White is really gaining traction among the anti-Bowser crowd, whatever that may mean. Whether Councilmember Trayon White will become a deciding factor, that remains to be seen. But they're also talking about the Attorney General's race. Ever since Kenyon McDuffie was put off the ballot because he didn't make the qualifications, so to speak, you have a lot of people, none of the above, who are saying none of the above. They don't know who they're going to pick in terms of the Attorney General. Now, as you know, Carl Racine, the incumbent, has endorsed Bruce Schwab, but we'll have to see how far that goes because there's still a lot of people very angry by the fact that Kenyon McDuffie is not on the ballot. But in terms of the ward races, the one everybody's talking about, at least those among us, is in Ward 5. Will they reelect Vincent Orange, or will one of the quote newcomers, Zachary Parker, Faith Gibson Hubbard, or Gordon Fletcher, take the place? There's been no solid polling on this, but one thing's for sure. Vincent Orange is well known and he's been out there a long time.
Before we jump off of that though, James, you moderated, I think, a panel or two in Ward 3, is that correct?
Yes.
So what we don't get to hear a lot about Ward 3. What are the issues going on over there? What are the voters, if you could name one or two big issues that's high on their radar, what would they be?
That's very interesting because it was educational for me in terms of learning about Ward 3 issues. They don't have a senior wellness center in Ward 3. And I was very shocked about that, and they're very upset about it. The Ward 3 Democrats passed a resolution requesting the Bowser administration set up a senior wellness center in Ward 3. The ANCs, all the ANCs in Ward 3, have passed a resolution requesting a senior wellness center. Now, the Department of Aging says, well, there's not a compelling need. And that's a very interesting thing that they're saying because Ward 3 has the largest group of seniors in the city. And it's ironic because Ward 8, even though Ward 8 is getting its second wellness center soon, has the largest group of young people in the city. So that's really what a lot of them are talking about. We would be expecting them to talk about more chic issues, but they're really talking about that bread and butter issue of having a senior wellness center.
I appreciate that because that, again, we wanted trying to spend a little bit more time with the entire city and the community. We do a lot in Ward 8, but there are other issues, Ward 5, what have you. Kevin, on a national scene, I know you deal a lot with Stacey Brown and some of the national issues. We've had these funerals. People, it seems like the situation in Buffalo, since there have been 2 mass killings since Buffalo, we're not hearing as much about Buffalo. But what do you see going on, and what's happening with I think the locally elected officials there, at least that Black community? have you gotten any word on how that's progressing?
Well, it's kind of the same thing over and over again, kind of conversations. Stacey Brown, who's our senior writer, and I have been talking to a lot of people, making just trying to determine how we want to present the stories and the information in an objective fashion, but one that reflects the sentiments and concerns of the African American community. To that end, we're seeing a lot of fireworks amongst the politicians, the elected officials, both locally and national. And you know, the unfortunate thing about it is, you know, if I were a betting man, I would bet that we'll get this for a while, and then we'll go back to business as usual until another mass shooting. You had Aisha Brayboy on earlier, who really hit it on the head. There are a lot of people who do need mental health services, a lot of us, and unfortunately, that's not often identified until after the fact. Now, that said, we've got a lot of guns out here, and we just don't want a conversation. If we are being proliferated by people with mental health, and if we also have unfettered access to guns, well, what's the compromise? It doesn't seem to be one. And so, yeah.
So it's a challenge. It really is, and I agree with you. And as I can't remember who it was said, really, you know, we're going to continue to have these situations. And I think the interesting question to ask, and maybe we'll end here, because I'd like to get everybody's input on this. The United States, they keep reporting, is the only country that tends to have these mass shootings. That other countries have taken, leaders of other countries have taken drastic steps to address the accessibility of guns. James, you come from a gun carrying state. You know, I'm going to call Texas a separate country because of how, you know, Kevin, you come from a state where, you know, Florida, where, you know, they do things differently there. Jamila, I'm not sure. I'm going back to hometowns, Pittsburgh, Sam and I in DC, where we have the strongest gun laws in the country in the District of Columbia, but still guns are prolific on DC streets. And William, maybe what's happening? I mean, what do you think would be the answer to addressing this whole availability and accessibility to guns? Or should we really be putting pressure on politicians to one? I mean, how is it that an 18-year-old can get what did he have, a semi-automatic or whatever, 300 rounds? How do you do that at 18 years old?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Well, I'll jump in real quick. And sorry, I was logged off. We have a storm going on over here in Upper Marlboro area.
Yeah.
The NRA is holding its convention. James knows about it. It's in his home, is the state where he's from. Start there with policy. You know, Kevin knows when he reads my story, I'm a policy guy because policy is in writing. You can see it right there. When you don't see a lot of policies or you see certain policies that don't make sense, there you go. And there has been a lot of discussion on how states pretty much are separate. The law allows states to have more of a control with these gun issues. And the NRA is a strong lobbyist, one of the strongest in this country. And so if you go to a particular state and see where the guns are prevalent, you'll see where the policies are prevalent or not. And
so are you tying politicians to money?
Some of them, absolutely. So yes, it's easy because just think about it. You have Ted Cruz, who was asked bluntly by a reporter out when he was in Texas, "What do you think about mass shootings?" He didn't want to discuss it. There it is.
Right.
That says something right there.
Right. Nor will he ever discuss it, not on open camera. But you know, the other thing I was saying on the flip side of that, and we've talked about this in our staff meeting, people do have. See, here's the problem: more people may be arming themselves because they are fearful they want to be protected, and you have that right. But remember that same membership has privileges. If you are a member of the United States, if you are a citizen in the United States, and you have these privileges, there are also responsibilities. And too many people are misusing the right, as it were, the right to bear arms. And sometimes, when you're a child and you misuse your privileges, you know what happens to them? They get revoked. And at some point, we're going to have to consider, I don't know, this is not 1776 anymore. This is 2022. It's a different world than George Washington and John Adams. And we cannot live and govern ourselves totally the way they did, because we're not a militia. We're just people just shooting children. And that's got to stop. And I don't know how you do it necessarily, but I got some thoughts. But we can't keep talking around it because I've got kids.
I got some thoughts, if y'all don't mind, very briefly.
Yeah, quickly, Sam.
I think the United States, I agree with what was put on the table, but we got to think more broadly. The United States has a military base in almost every country around the world. Democrats, Republicans, politicians, regardless of party, they put forth laws that are violent in more ways than one toward marginalized populations. And the legacy of the United States is steeped in violence. And not to mention that we are coming out of a pandemic and out of a paradigm where we are working longer hours for less money. People are stressed out, and this whole issue of mental health, it runs much deeper than getting people access to what they need. There are people who are working as if life is good when in fact it isn't. And children are the benefactors of that world. We are giving children a world where we are pretending everything is well when in fact it's not. And the mass shootings are just evidence of that. So, I'm not entirely sure if a law is going to change anything, because even with the strongest gun laws in DC, people have ghost guns, people have what it takes, to go beyond the law. And even when you talk about law enforcement, and speaking with some residents, there are stories across the United States about law enforcement being involved in the sale of guns on the black market. So it's a very multifaceted issue, but I think that the United States government and we as a people, we need to look at the foundation that we carry every day and the life that we are making for ourselves here that has produced all of this. So it's not, I don't see it stopping with the passage of a few laws, and it's a multifaceted issue, but it starts there with acknowledging that America has always been violent towards itself and towards others.
Well, James, I remember one of my early trips to Texas. My daddy's from Texas, so that, but I didn't realize it till I went there on my own one day and riding down the street and seeing folks that don't look like me with pickup trucks and rifles. I did feel some kind of way about that, but you've grown up with it, so I can kind of see what Sam is saying, and I'm just wondering, and I'm going to let you weigh in and then give Jamila the last word here. But, you've grown up in a state where guns were legal and people could carry them openly. And what's your take?
My take is that guns in Texas are commonplace. My father was a member of the NRA in the 1970s. Now, note I said the 1970s. This was when the National Rifle Association was more or less of an education organization, educating people about how to use guns, how to use firearms properly, offering courses on how to do that. It wasn't until the 80s and Ronald Reagan came in that it took this hard right turn in terms of political activism. The answer, I believe, is to get these politicians on Capitol Hill to enact gun background checks, gun registration, and again, getting rid of those AK-47 assault rifles. That's what they need to do.
Jamila, you got the last word.
Same as it ever was, same as it is, same as it will be. When those children in Sandy Hook got mowed down and nothing happened, And now these little brown children in Texas got mowed down. And you have the former president and a whole bunch of those who suck at the teat of the greatest lobby in this country going, oh yeah, thoughts and prayers. Nothing will change. Nothing will change. This requires a ground up, decisive level, a la what Ronald Reagan did in the 80s with the silent majority or whatnot. It requires from dog catcher on up, people who agree with common sense gun registration laws, usage laws, licensing laws, so on. And you have to seed the places all over this country with politicians who are elected with that kind of mindset. That's how we got to this place. That's how we would get out of this place. And while the almighty dollar is what the elected people bow down to, the NRA has more of those than anybody else. I am not trying to fight Goliath on a flat, open plain where I can't hide. It makes no sense. And trying to fight the NRA at what they do does not make sense. You have to figure out, well, we can have a stronghold here in New York where we can hold liable the manufacturers in this way because of the laws here. Here's where we have politicians who can, enact laws looking at cities such as DC. It requires the piecemeal approach because this is not, the Constitution is federal. The laws governing gun usage are reserved to each individual state and sometimes the cities they're in. It's a big albatross. You can't get done with it. I don't see change for another 30 years.
Jamila, let me ask this though. My father had 10 guns in the house from a man from Alabama.
I'm a cops kid. I grew up learning how to shoot before I could drive.
Need a law. I did not need a law because my daddy would have wore me out from the time I was 1 to the time I was 41 if I ever violated the laws. He said, "You don't use these. When you redo these, here's the way we do it." That's right. And I think we gotta get back to some family, some parenting, and some family stuff because we're gonna have this conversation. Our children know better. My grandsons know better. Now, if you start at the nuclear situation, maybe you'll be able to move up. Anyway.
Well, I'm not worried about you, Kevin. I'm worried about sending my kid to a public school or to a theater or to a grocery store. I wish more of your daddy was around.
Let's end on, because we will be celebrating Father's Day in just a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about what dads do and the important role dads play in our lives. And so a great point to end on, Jamila. Thank you all so much for being with us. We're going to continue to have these. It's not a round table. This is more of a rectangular box. So we might call this the reporter's rectangular box. But we'll see you again as a group in a couple of weeks. But keep doing what you do. And I think what we'll do next time, Chevry, is just to make sure that we put people's maybe your social media tags up there so that folks can reach out to you, because we want folks to keep in touch with you as they continue to read the Washington Informer. Thank you all so much for being with us. Have a safe weekend. I think the storm may have passed for now, hopefully. All righty. Take care.
Take care. Much love.
Thank you. So please make sure that you join us in about a week. The next issue of Win TV, next episode of Win TV next Friday. We're going to have the folks from AARP on talking about seniors and the election and politics and all of that. So we want to, if you have any seniors like me in your community, make sure that they watch Win TV next Friday. We don't want you to leave, because up next is the WI Bridge broadcast of what's going on in DC with the media print. So have a great weekend until then, until we see you next time, and stay safe.
Welcome to another epic week. It is a 3-day weekend, and I'm just here for everything. So I welcome you all. Sit back and enjoy the DMV ride.
We bring you culture and taste, art and entertainment. We bring you history and politics. And we got all things DC. I even got you covered, Maryland and Virginia. Welcome to What's Going On, DC.
I'm your boy, the Media Prince, your purveyor of all things DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So let's get started, shall we? In politics, a DC man calls out MPD officer that caused harm in his community and the effects of police brutality to Mayor Bowser. Take a look.
Got it.
He and 8 other officers took the hinges off of this building right here and came into my home without a warrant and without any probable cause and beat me, tased me in my living room naked, fresh out of the shower, over and over again. On January 26th last year, I came to your office about it. Y'all didn't do anything to those officers. Y'all haven't done anything to help my mental health at all.
Okay, so there was a police.
Officer Nickerson and 8 other
Okay, let me just ask you a question. Let me just ask you a question. There was a complaint made already, I assume. Okay, so then we can follow up on it. Okay.
Let's move on. In general news, well, remember I reported a few weeks ago about a red fox killing flamingos at the National Zoo. Well, that fox was put out of its misery as it was considered a threat. So the fox is... Looks like we have not seen the last of cicadas. Some of the Blood X could emerge this year. Goodness. In sports, the Washington Commanders have bought 200 acres of land in Woodbridge, Virginia. Take a look at it. ESPN just announced they have started a production 30 for 30 documentary on the 2000 to 2001 Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of the Baltimore Ravens, Kyle Fuller is back as the CB. Let's see what KD's approach to trash talking is.
First off, I don't talk unless somebody's talking to me.
Yeah.
And I try to channel all my trash talk to the coaches and the guys on the bench.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be relaying these messages back to the guys that's on the court.
Yeah. So you might be going back down court and you pass the coach and you might say,
well, this guy, you might have to switch this matchup, or he's too small.
In fashion, Malik from Eat, aka All Homage, shares his design on Shoe City's display, and it's quite epic. Take a look.
This is to the young brothers, man. I know some of you young brothers out there, y'all getting y'all hustle on, y'all selling clothes, y'all breeding dogs, y'all selling plates, y'all mowing yards. Anything that's going to get you some positive income and not put you inside of a cell is a good thing, man. If you grind hard, you're going to shine hard eventually. Don't worry about the little nigga pulling up on you in the SRT because he been flipping bows. Say, man, they going to lock the doors on his ass and he going to be writing you asking for some cash. On Max, stay on your grind, consistency and longevity. This is a marathon, not a 100-yard dash.
Also, he is having a Memorial Day sale, so get your stuff, y'all. June Sanders introduces the Miami Drive New Balances. Take a look. In entertainment, Taraji P. Henson stars as Belle Bottom in Minions. Take a look.
Let's rock and roll! Woo, baby, the anti-villain league can't catch this!
Shout out to Tabby Bonet. His product, Itati Body, was selected to participate in Target's Forward Founders Court. Congratulations. IDK explains his album and announces a tour.
Simple is basically based off of this neighborhood called Simple City where I'm from. I have a friend from there, and I remember, like I said, when I first got the Maybach, I would ride over there to pick him up and just take him around so he could see like a different side of life, because he's from the trenches for real. I'm not from there, but I just know him. I've known him for years, and it inspired me to write and tell a story, partially his story, but just the story of being in an area where people outside of that area think the solution to the problems It's very simple.
Did y'all know Wale was in a movie? Take a look.
Hello? Look, I need help. I need a diversion. Danny, what the hell is going on right now, man? The explosives, the guns. You just gotta take a deep breath because you're stressing me out, man. What? I'm fine! Ambulance. You guys are giving me Grand Theft Auto vibes, man, and it's throwing me off.
Only in theaters Friday. Kalani and Rico Nasty take their tour to the next level.
Hear me out. We have cracked the Da Vinci Code.
I needed you.
You needed me.
Then they
need us.
They need us. Should we take this thing on the road?
Taurus Queen, let's go!
I gotta let him win, let's say so.
If you needed motivation, here it is.
Just trying to grow as a person, and I'm far from perfect, man. I ain't about to sit up here and act like I got all the answers.
We all
and I'm
figuring it out.
Man, I'm figuring this out day by day. I'm winging this thing, man, for the most part. And but just trying to do it with a little more self-awareness, that's all. And just trying to grow every day, man. Like, I'm never gonna pretend like I'm infallible and I'm on my square 100%. Like, I make mistakes like everybody else do. I'm far from perfect, but I'm just trying to figure it out.
Take a look at these artists as they try and guess what the DMV stands for. Child.
Do you know what the DMV stands for?
Virginia, Maryland, and something else. I don't know. I thought no.
Detroit, Michigan, and Vermont.
That's up north. You gotta ask me about some down south. I don't know nothing about them North Pole people.
It's like that area of like 3 states put together, and they all just hang with each other.
I don't know. I thought the N was from Maryland. I thought the V was from Virginia, and the D is down in the dirty. I don't know.
Let's end things off with what is happening around town. The Washington City Paper is looking for an audience, growth, and engagement editor. Head to their website and apply now. It's Memorial Day weekend, so take a look at 10 events to go to this weekend, courtesy of DC Now Events. Well, folks, it's Memorial Day weekend. Be safe out here. I will holler at y'all next week. We love you for watching. Peace.